Today, we'll set up Ollama and Open Web UI running on a VM to start up on the boot of your Windows desktop machine. If you've watched my previous video on building a 100% private AI, you might remember that one of my requirements is that I wanted my private AI stack to be available at system startup without having to log on to the system. And that's because I want to access this stack remotely. Turns out this is more complicated on a Windows desktop than it is with other systems like Linux, but I did end up figuring out a fairly reliable method. So for this, there's going to be a few changes to my 100% private AI video. First, instead of installing Ollama from the exe that's commonly available on ollama.com, we'll be installing it from Ollama's GitHub repo manually. Second, we're going to use NSSM to create the background service for Ollama. NSSM is the non-sucking service manager. It's a popular tool that people use to create services on Windows machines. Third, we're going to use the Windows task scheduler to start your VM on boot or shortly thereafter. So, I should mention this is actually how my production build is set up, with a few added layers of security that we'll discuss in a future video. I want to keep these videos a little bit shorter than the first one, and if I talk about all of the levels and layers in the first one, you won't be able to learn all why I've done certain things or how this approach might be useful for you. Now, there's a few advantages to this particular approach. One is that by installing Ollama this way, you can choose where Ollama is installed, or I can choose where Ollama is installed. And that's really helpful because by default, Ollama only installs on the C drive on a Windows machine. C drive is, for me at least, not my biggest drive, and I want to install that somewhere else where I have a lot more space and maybe more performance to use Ollama. Same thing goes with model files. Now by default, they will be in the Ollama folder, but this method makes it, again, just a little bit easier using some environment variables to choose other places to store the model file, which is the biggest part of Ollama. The other thing is starting on boot means that I can remotely trigger my AI service without leaving my power-hungry PC on at all times. So I'm lucky enough to have a smart home system with some smart plugs I can trigger remotely from my phone. So when I'm at a client site or somewhere else abroad or whatever, and I think I have a project where I would really like to use my AI, I can just turn it on remotely. My PC is set in the BIOS to power on boot, and then voila, in a few minutes, I will have my own private AI accessible to me. Again, there are some other security layers that you have to deal with when you're doing this so that you don't expose your private network to the internet without, some level of security, but we will discuss that in a future video. So, for those of you who would like to make your life a little bit easier, I've just released an open repo on GitHub that has a lot of configuration and setup scripts that I use for this. There's a particular script called Llama server install that you can totally do to do this job. And there's even one for NSSM that you can use. There are other things in there like script to check variables, scripts to start and stop the whole kind of stack. So go ahead and check that out. It might be useful to you. It might just be a starting point. Of course, I won't warranty that everything in there is perfect. I just use it for my development, and I'm not a 100% developer. So take it or leave it as you will. You will notice, though, that the name for this project is Loki, and that stands for Local Gaming Inference. Think about that what you will. Maybe you think it's hella cringe. Maybe you think it's cool. I don't know. First, if you have Ollama installed from the standard site download, go ahead and uninstall that because we won't be needing it. Then, let's go to Ollama's GitHub page and navigate to releases to go download it. Let's take a look from my PC here. Okay, we're taking a look at my desktop. Here's that GitHub thing I was talking about. And here if we go to github.com/Ollama releases, and if you go to releases, you can go to the latest one, which will always be at the top. It's 057, and you can go ahead and download Ollama Windows AMD 64. This is the one that you're going to want. Now, obviously, for speed and efficiency, I've already downloaded this, and I've already downloaded NSSM. To download NSSM, again, go to nssm.cc/download, and you can go ahead and download that latest release as well. Again, I've already downloaded this. So now unpack Ollama to the directory of your choice. I prefer to put everything in my, I got like a special drive that I'm using for AI. So there you go. I'm going to put it in AI/Ollama. So here I am just creating a new folder for that. And I'm going to take this, the contents of this zip file, and put it into there. And it'll take a few minutes to expand and install all of its components. Cool, there you go. And now Ollama is installed here. You can check that everything's working correctly, but we will do that in a moment. So the next thing you want to do is you want to create a system path for this, or a machine path. Usually I do this with a PowerShell script, but a PowerShell script is a little bit harder to show you, and you would need to go and like download it. So I'll just show you the manual way through the GUI. First, let's open up the advanced system settings properties. So you can just go run this command, just start run system properties advanced, and press enter. It's at this time that I should say, I'm sorry. I realize that my PC is in a language that is not English. I also realize that that probably makes it a little bit more difficult for some viewers to figure out what I'm doing, especially when I'm working through the GUI. I do try and make more use of command lines and particular commands, because those are all in English, and the output therefore is a little bit easier to work with. But in some cases like this, I'm going to use the GUI. That said, I think most of you are more than smart enough and intelligent enough to follow along to where I'm clicking, so that you can figure out how to do this on a PC in any language. Cool. So we have the advanced system settings out, and we're going to go to the environment variables. That is the one here at the very bottom. And if we open that up, you can see lots of different variables. We are looking for the system one, and we're specifically looking for path. So I'm going to edit this, and at the very, well, it doesn't matter where you put it. You just put new path, and here I'm going to put the path to Ollama. So this is t/AI/Ollama. I guess add a slash at the end, but I'm not sure that that's important. Click OK, OK, and OK. And now, if I open up a new PowerShell, I should be able to do Ollama PS, and it says Ollama is running, which is fine actually, because that means it's called the actual Ollama executive, right? So then I can try this doing Ollama serve. And there you go. You should get an output like that, which shows you that it is currently working. Cool. Now what we need to do is create a service with this. We're going to need to use NSSM to do that. So again, you can install this wherever you want. It's the same kind of thing. You're going to unpack it. I actually like to use this in it's fairly light and small, so I will put it in my program files because it's something that I use all the time. So I'll just create a folder here. Yep, NSSM. Oh look, I already have one. I'll delete that one so that you can see how I do it from scratch. Okay, cool. Create a new folder, NSSM. And then just drop the contents there. Okay, again, expanded everything. So now there's that. And then Win64 is what you want. I'm assuming that you're on a 64-bit system, and that's the executable. So if you're like me, you will create a system path like we just did for Ollama for this, because it's then just useful to interact with if you have to create other services or to interact with this. But you can just open a terminal there. So I'm doing right click, open a terminal, and you can use it from here. And then we'll do NSSM install Ollama. Okay, it says you need to be administrator, but this will automatically raise you to administrator. And then there we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the Ollama path. And I know that this is a T-AI-Ollama, right? So this is the actual path for the application. It will automatically put up your startup directory, and then the argument you're going to do is serve. If you want, you can add any details or whatever to this, but you don't really need to do that. Display name, Ollama, description, service for running Ollama in background, and startup type will be automatic by default. So cool. Install service, service Ollama installed. Hooray! Okay, and now you can check that it's working. You can go back to your PowerShell here, and you'll just do start service Ollama.
Oh no! What?
Oh, it's because I'm not in an admin PowerShell. Open up an admin PowerShell. So let's open up an admin PowerShell. And let's do that PowerShell. Show you the way if you don't have shortcuts like I do. Admin PowerShell, start service, Ollama. Boom. And now Ollama should be running, and you can double check because then you can do Ollama PS. And if you get this response, it means that the service is running. Great. Otherwise, you'll get something like error. Now, let's turn to doing the VM. So if you follow my last video on this, at around 956 seconds or whatever, I'll put the link in the description or in the top pinned comment. You will have installed the VM with OpenWebUI and stuff like that. And if you start that VM, then the Docker instances like OpenWebUI will come up on that, when the VM starts. So when it comes to starting a VM on your Windows boot, I have to say I had to scour the internet. It was a little bit difficult to find a way to do it. There was lots of ways mentioned, but most of them didn't quite work. So using the task scheduler in Windows seemed to be the most reliable for me. So thankfully, it means that you don't really need any extra software. So first, let's open up the task scheduler. And you can do this by running command, just sched tasks. What a great name. Oh, sorry, control sched tasks. And then that will bring up your task scheduler. Again, sorry for the foreign language. What you can do, you can see that I've already done this for myself, is I've created a new folder called VirtualBox. You don't have to do that, but I would definitely recommend doing that. It just keeps it clean. And I have created a task, which is called Loki Startup. So you will create yourself the same thing. So create a new task. And what you need to do is you need to make sure that you follow the same things that I have here. So what we have here is, in general, just the name of the task. Make sure that it says to run this whether or not the user is logged on. So that's important. This box is not important, so running it with the highest privileges, I don't know if that changes anything. I just checked it. With the actual triggers, so the trigger here, you can see that I put as with startup. Okay, so that's what you want as your trigger. Optionally, you can add a delay, so I put a delay here, but for the longest time I wasn't using it with a delay, so I think that's optional. Maybe if some system's taking a little bit more time, some other components within your Windows PC stack takes a little bit more time, then maybe you want to add delay. So that's that. You can leave that open. Now the action will be to start a program. Now, if you've installed one of the later versions of VirtualBox, as instructed in my previous video, what you will want to do is then go and select that program. The default location is in Program Files, Oracle, VirtualBox, but we're looking for VBox Manage. This is the kind of command line interface to interact with VMs. So you'll find that. You can do that, the browse throughout and find that, but this should be the location, but look for wherever it is in your PC. And then your arguments are going to be start VM, space, the name of your VM, in my case, Loki, -- type, and then headless. And that creates it as a thing that runs in the back. And then leave this empty. I've heard from some people that if you put anything in there, it can actually mess things up. So click OK. And then for conditions, I think by default there's nothing in the conditions. So just leave that like that, or make sure that there's nothing. We don't really want any conditions. And then lastly, at the setup tab, what you want to do is enable the tasks to be run on demand. Run the tasks as soon as possible if the scheduled start is missed. I've also added a few things, which is kind of optional, but if running the task fails, then start it again every 5 minutes, up to 5 times. And then the last thing is at the very bottom here, if the task is running already, don't start the task again. And then click OK. Of course, when you do this, it will ask you to put in your password. Yay! Okay. And then voila, that's it. You should now have a running, you should now have Ollama and your VM, hopefully running OpenWebUI, start up when you boot your system. Adios.